Armin was just an ordinary young man living in a busy city. He worked at a small office during the day and spent his evenings helping his friends whenever he could. Life was simple, calm, and predictable. He had never imagined that one day, everything would change in a single terrifying moment. That day started like any other. Armin had been helping his friend organize a local community event in the city park. People from nearby neighborhoods had come to enjoy music, games, and food stalls. Children ran around laughing, families enjoyed picnics, and the atmosphere was filled with happiness. Armin loved seeing people smile. He liked being useful and felt proud when he helped make things run smoothly. As he was checking on one of the food stalls, Armin noticed a woman walking slowly through the crowd. She was not like the others. She carried herself with a quiet confidence, moving with grace, and her eyes seemed to observe everything around her. She was calm, yet there was something about her presence that made people take notice, even without realizing it. Armin thought she looked familiar in a way he could not explain. He glanced at her for a moment longer before turning back to his tasks, thinking nothing more of it. Suddenly, the calm of the afternoon was shattered by a loud, sharp explosion. The sound was deafening, and a cloud of smoke and debris shot into the air. Chaos erupted immediately. People screamed, ran in every direction, and tripped over each other in panic. The smell of smoke and burning filled the air, and pieces of shattered wood and metal scattered across the ground. Armin felt the shockwave hit him like a heavy weight. His ears rang, and he stumbled backward, trying to regain his balance. Through the confusion, Armin saw the woman from earlier. She was frozen, unable to move as the blast spread closer to her. Without thinking, without any plan, Armin ran toward her. His heart pounded in his chest, and his body moved on instinct alone. He reached her just in time and threw himself over her, shielding her with his own body. Pain and heat engulfed him immediately as he felt the force of the blast hit him directly. The ground beneath them shook violently, and dust and debris filled every corner of his vision. Armin could hardly see, but he knew one thing. He had saved her. His body absorbed the impact, and he felt a sharp burning pain across his arms and back. There was no time to think about himself. His only concern was that the woman he had just protected was safe. Somehow, miraculously, she was unharmed. She looked up at him through the smoke, her eyes wide but calm, as if nothing could truly scare her. Armin could barely breathe, the pain overwhelming, but relief washed over him when he realized she was alive. Rescuers and other bystanders began to arrive at the scene, helping the injured and trying to control the panic. Armin could hear people shouting, calling for ambulances, and comforting those who were crying. Someone finally helped him move out of the immediate area of danger. He was badly hurt, but he could not stop thinking about her. Who was she? Why did she seem so calm in the middle of such chaos? He wanted to speak to her, to make sure she was truly okay, but she had already vanished into the crowd. The days after the incident were a blur for Armin. He woke up in the hospital, his body bandaged and sore, his mind full of questions. Doctors told him he had been very lucky to survive. The explosion had caused severe injuries, and he had been at risk of life-threatening complications. Nurses and staff moved around him with care, checking his vitals and giving him the medicine he needed. Family and friends visited, offering support. But Armin's mind was elsewhere. All he could think about was the woman he had saved. Even as he recovered physically, his thoughts kept returning to that moment. He could picture her face, her calm expression, and the way she had looked at him after he shielded her from the blast. There was a strange feeling in his chest, a mix of curiosity and admiration. He wondered who she was, and why she had been there at that moment. Was it a coincidence, or was there something more to it? Armin's life, which had always felt ordinary and safe, suddenly felt different. The explosion had changed everything. not just physically, but emotionally. He realized how fragile life could be and how quickly everything familiar could be taken away. That realization left him restless and uneasy, but it also filled him with a strange sense of purpose. He wanted to understand the story behind the woman he saved, to know why fate had placed him in that exact position at that exact time. Despite the lingering pain and exhaustion, Armin began to gather information. He read news articles about the explosion, listened to eyewitness accounts, and tried to track any clue about the mysterious woman. People called him a hero, praised his bravery, and some even joked about his superhuman instincts. But Armin could not think about fame or praise. He only wanted answers, only wanted to know the truth about the woman who had left a mark on his life that day. As he healed, he began noticing strange things. People he had never met seemed to appear in his life, sometimes watching him silently, sometimes sending messages that hinted at knowledge of the incident. Small coincidences started to pile up, making him feel that there was more at play than just random chance. Something about the woman and the explosion felt connected to a larger story, one that he could not yet understand. Armin's ordinary life had ended the moment he threw himself into the blast. The simple days of work and quiet evenings were replaced by curiosity, mystery, and a growing sense that his actions had set him on a path he could never have imagined. All he knew for certain was that he had saved a life, and that life belonged to someone extraordinary. Who she was and what would come next was still unknown, but Armin felt a strange certainty that his life would never be the same again. The memory of that moment, the sound of the blast, the heat of the explosion, the look on her face, stayed with him day and night. It haunted him, yes, but it also drove him forward. Every step he took in recovery, every effort he made to regain his strength, was now guided by one thought: to understand the woman he had saved and the reason fate had brought them together in the most dangerous moment of their lives. Armin's recovery from the explosion was slow and painful. His body bore the marks of the blast, burns on his arms and legs, bruises across his torso, and a few broken bones that made even simple movements difficult. Every morning he woke, up with aches and stiffness, and every night he struggled to fall asleep because of the memories of that terrifying moment. Yet despite the pain, he felt alive in a way he had never felt before. Surviving the blast made him realize how fragile life was and how quickly it could change. That realization stayed with him, quietly shaping every thought and decision. During the first few weeks in the hospital, friends and family visited often. They brought flowers, gifts, and encouraging words, but Armin's mind was not on his own. Recovery. His thoughts kept returning to her, the woman he had saved. He tried to recall every detail about her appearance, her voice, and her movements. She had seemed calm even as the explosion happened, almost as if she expected danger. There was something extraordinary about her, something that set her apart from everyone else he had ever met. Despite asking around, Armin could not find out much about her. Witnesses at the scene remembered a graceful woman being pushed out of harm's way, but after that, she had disappeared without a trace. No one seemed to know who she was or where she had gone. Armin felt a mix of frustration and curiosity. He wanted to meet her again, to ensure she was safe, and perhaps to understand why she had been there at that moment. Yet, as he soon realized, she was not someone easy to find. The news had covered the explosion extensively, praising the anonymous hero who risked his life to save another. Armin read the articles with interest, but instead of feeling proud, he felt a quiet unease. People celebrated his bravery, yet he felt like the real story, the woman, her calmness, and the reason behind the attack, was still missing. Each article made him more determined to learn the truth. It was not just curiosity anymore, it was a need to understand the mystery that had entered his life. As he began to recover physically, Armin noticed strange coincidences around him. People seemed to appear at unexpected times, sometimes asking questions about the incident, sometimes simply watching him from a distance. At first, he thought it was his imagination, a side effect of stress and pain. But over time, it became clear that something unusual was happening. He received anonymous letters expressing gratitude for saving the woman, hints about her identity, and even cryptic messages suggesting that he was involved in events far bigger than he could yet comprehend. Armand also noticed a change in how he viewed the world. Small things that had never mattered before suddenly caught his attention. He noticed people's expressions more carefully, the way crowds moved, and the subtle signs that something was not quite right in everyday situations. He became more aware, more alert, as if the explosion had opened his eyes to the unseen dangers and hidden truths around him. Every moment of ordinary life now carried a sense of possibility and uncertainty. The woman's image haunted him. He replayed the moment of the blast in his mind again and again, imagining what would have happened if he had not acted. He felt a strange bond with her, though he had only known her for a few seconds. Her calmness, her grace under pressure, and the mysterious way she had appeared in his life left a mark he could not ignore. It was as if the universe had placed her in front of him for a reason, and he needed to discover what that reason was. One day, as he sat quietly in the hospital garden, a nurse mentioned something that caught his attention. She said that a few dignitaries had attended the event and had left immediately after the explosion. The way she spoke, she seemed cautious, almost as if she knew more than she could say. Armand listened carefully, storing every word in his memory. It was the first real clue that the woman might not be an ordinary visitor. Could she be connected to someone important? He did not know yet, but the thought both excited and worried him. Armand's family noticed the change in him. He had always been thoughtful, but now he was restless and consumed by questions. He spent hours reading news reports, revisiting the scene of the explosion in his mind, and trying to connect the dots between the mysterious woman and the strangers who seemed to be watching him. His mother worried that he was overthinking, but his father simply nodded, sensing that something extraordinary had entered Armand's life and that it could not be ignored. As weeks passed, Armand regained strength. His wounds healed, and he could walk without assistance, though some scars would remain as reminders of that day. Even so, he could not return fully to his previous life. Work and ordinary routines felt dull compared to the intensity of what had happened. He realized that he was no longer just an ordinary man. The explosion had changed him, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. He was now part of a story that was larger than himself. Then, the messages began. First, a small envelope left anonymously at his doorstep. Inside was a simple note. "You saved someone extraordinary. Expect the unexpected." A few days later, another message arrived, this time directing him to a location in the city. Armand felt both nervous and curious. He knew these messages were related to the woman, but he did not yet understand why they were being sent or who was behind them. Still, he felt a strong pull to follow them, as if fate itself was guiding him. Despite the lingering pain from his injuries, Armand began, preparing to meet whoever was behind the messages. He realized that this was no longer about curiosity alone. Something important was unfolding, something that could change his life forever. The explosion had been more than an accident, and the woman he saved was connected to a larger story he had only begun to glimpse. Each day brought new signs, new mysteries, and a growing sense that his life would never return to the way it had been before that fateful afternoon. Armand's determination grew stronger with each passing day. He was ready to step into the unknown, to seek answers about the woman who had left such a deep impression on him. He did not yet know the challenges or the dangers that awaited him, but he felt that he had a purpose now, a reason to endure the pain, to seek the truth, and to embrace the extraordinary life that fate seemed to be offering him. The days of ordinary living were over. The path ahead was uncertain, but for Armin, it was the path he had to follow. Weeks had passed since Armin's recovery, and the messages guiding him toward answers became more frequent. Each message arrived anonymously, delivered with care and precision. They were polite, yet mysterious, hinting that he was being invited into a world far beyond his understanding. Despite the nervous excitement these messages brought, Armin never hesitated. He felt a strange certainty that the woman he saved, the one whose calm eyes had haunted him, was at the center of it all. One day, he received a formal invitation in a thick envelope sealed with an emblem he did not recognize. The handwriting was elegant, almost regal. It read, "You are requested to attend a private ceremony. Your presence is requested at the Grand Hall. Come alone. Come prepared." Armin's heart raced as he read the words. Questions swirled in his mind. Who had sent this? What kind of ceremony was it? And most importantly, would the woman he saved be there? Despite the uncertainty, he knew he had to go. On the day of the ceremony, Armin dressed carefully. His injuries had mostly healed, but he still moved with some stiffness. As he approached the location, he noticed the grandeur of the surroundings. The streets were lined with elegant lanterns, and guards in formal uniforms directed visitors with precision and dignity. Armin felt like he had stepped into a storybook. He had never seen anything like it before. The building itself was magnificent, with towering columns, polished floors, and intricate designs on every wall. Everything suggested that this place was important, but he still had no idea what awaited him inside. As he entered the grand hall, the room fell silent. Armin felt every eye on him, a mixture of curiosity and respect. People dressed in rich fabrics and ornate jewelry walked gracefully, moving with poise and purpose. He realized that these were not ordinary citizens. These were dignitaries, advisors, and important figures from a world he had never known. And then he saw her. The woman he had saved was standing at the center of the hall. She looked even more extraordinary than he remembered. Her presence commanded attention without effort. Her clothes were elegant and adorned with subtle symbols of authority, yet they did not take away from her natural grace. She moved through the crowd with calm confidence, acknowledging the people around her with gentle gestures. When her eyes met his, Armin felt a rush of recognition and awe. Then the announcement came. A voice echoed through the hall, clear and powerful. "This brave man saved my life. I owe him more than words can express. He is our hero." Armin's heart pounded as he realized the weight of those words. The woman, the mysterious, calm woman, was not just someone extraordinary. She was the queen. She ruled a hidden kingdom, a place with traditions, influence, and responsibilities far beyond anything Armin had ever imagined. The people in the hall bowed in respect, acknowledging both the queen and the man who had protected her. Armin felt a mixture of shock, pride, and disbelief. He had always considered himself an ordinary man, someone who helped friends and family, but never expected to be part of a story like this. And yet, here he was, being recognized by a queen for an act he had performed instinctively. The realization that his bravery had saved not just a life but a ruler, someone who carried the weight of a kingdom on her shoulders, was overwhelming. The queen approached him with a gentle smile, her eyes calm yet full of gratitude. She extended her hand, and Armin, still stunned, shook it. She spoke softly, but with authority. "You saved me when no one else could. Your courage has preserved more than just my life. You have preserved hope, stability, and the future of my people." Armin could hardly find words to respond. He nodded, feeling honored and humbled. He realized that this woman, whose life he had protected, was someone whose decisions affected countless others. Her kingdom's safety and prosperity had been, in part, in his hands that day. As the ceremony continued, Armin observed the intricate details of the palace. Servants and officials moved efficiently, and advisors whispered quietly to each other, discussing matters that seemed incredibly complex. He began to understand that the explosion had been no accident. It had been a targeted attack, an attempt on the Queen's life. The people around him seemed relieved that he had acted so bravely. His instinctive action had prevented a disaster that could have shaken an entire kingdom. Despite the awe and admiration, Armin remained grounded. He could not forget the fear he had felt during the blast, the pain of his injuries, and the uncertainty of whether he would survive. Those memories reminded him of the fragility of life and the value of courage. The Queen seemed to sense his thoughts. She spoke to him privately, her voice calm and sincere. "What you did was not expected, yet it was the most important thing anyone could have done. Your bravery has changed the course of many lives, including mine." Armin felt a deep connection forming between them. It was not romantic, not yet, but it was a bond of trust and respect. He realized that the Queen was not only powerful, but also deeply human. She carried immense responsibility, yet she remained composed, aware, and caring. The realization that he had saved someone so remarkable filled him with pride, but also with a sense of responsibility. He knew that his life was now tied to hers in ways he could not fully understand. As the ceremony drew to a close, the Queen publicly acknowledged Armin's heroism. Photographs were taken, dignitaries offered their congratulations, and advisors spoke in hushed tones about the significance of his actions. Armin, still recovering from the initial shock, felt a mixture of humility and awe. He had always believed that ordinary people could perform extraordinary deeds, but now he had witnessed it firsthand in himself. When the hall emptied and the crowd dispersed, the Queen invited Armin to a private room. Here, away from the public eye, she explained more about the kingdom, the threats she faced, and the challenges ahead. Armin listened intently, realizing that the explosion was only the beginning of a much larger story. She spoke of loyalty, courage, and the delicate balance between danger and responsibility. Armin realized that his life had become part of this larger world, a world filled with challenges, honor, and duty. By the end of the evening, Armin understood something crucial. His bravery had not only saved a life, but had also opened the door to a new reality. He was no longer just an ordinary man. He had become someone trusted and valued by a queen, someone whose actions had lasting consequences. He left the palace that night with a mixture of wonder, pride, and determination. He knew that his journey was only beginning, and that the bond he shared with the Queen, born from a moment of courage, would guide him through the extraordinary life that awaited him. After the revelation at the ceremony, Armin's life changed completely. The ordinary routines he had once relied on, work at his office, quiet evenings with friends, and simple weekends, felt distant and almost impossible to return to. Instead, he was thrust into a world of formality, responsibility, and careful observation. Every day brought new lessons about the kingdom, the Queen, and the delicate balance between power and service. What had started as a single act of bravery now carried consequences that reached far beyond him. The Queen personally invited him to remain in the palace for a period of time, to recover fully and to learn about the operations of her kingdom. At first, Armin felt overwhelmed. The palace was magnificent, but intimidating. Every corridor seemed to echo with history, and every room carried a sense of importance that demanded respect. The servants, advisors, and guards all moved with precision, each person understanding their role in a system that was far more complex than anything Armin had known. He realized quickly that he was a newcomer in a world of tradition, hierarchy, and careful protocol. Despite feeling out of place, Armin was determined to adapt. The Queen assigned a small team to guide him, explaining the kingdom's customs, rules, and expectations. Armin learned about security protocols, communication, networks, and the careful planning required to maintain stability and protect the Queen. He discovered that the blast he had been caught in was not random. It had been an assassination attempt orchestrated by forces who wished to disrupt the peace of the kingdom. Understanding this, Armin realized that his bravery had prevented far more than personal harm. It had preserved the safety and stability of an entire nation. Living in the palace also exposed Armin to the human side of the Queen. Though she was regal, authoritative, and commanding, she also carried the burdens of her role with quiet humility. Armin observed her working tirelessly, meeting with advisors, and making difficult decisions that affected thousands of lives. She spent long hours listening to the concerns of her people and carefully planning strategies to maintain peace and prosperity. It became clear to Armin that her strength was not just in authority, but in wisdom, compassion, and the ability to remain calm under pressure, the very qualities that had struck him the day he saved her. Gradually, a bond of trust and respect grew between Armin and the Queen. She began to share her thoughts with him, asking his opinion on certain matters and valuing his perspective as someone from outside her world. Armin, in turn, became more confident in his understanding of her challenges and responsibilities. He learned to navigate conversations with advisors, participate in strategic discussions, and observe the subtle ways in which decisions were made. At first it was overwhelming, but he adapted quickly, driven by both curiosity and a sense of duty. Armin's role in the palace was not limited to observation. The Queen encouraged him to take active responsibility in certain areas, particularly those that involved safety and logistics. He learned to coordinate security measures, plan emergency responses, and communicate with officials discreetly and efficiently. Each task was a challenge, but Armin found satisfaction in knowing that his efforts could prevent harm and protect lives. What had started as instinctive bravery in a single moment of danger had now grown into deliberate courage applied daily. Despite the demands of palace life, Armin never lost the memory of the day he saved the Queen. That moment continued to inspire him, reminding him of the importance of quick thinking, compassion, and courage. He realized that heroism was not just about dramatic gestures. It was also about consistent, thoughtful action that made a difference over time. The palace became both a place of learning and a constant reminder that his choices had consequences far beyond what he had imagined. Armin also discovered that living in the palace brought unexpected challenges. He was an outsider among people who had spent their lives within this world, and there were moments of doubt and insecurity. Some advisors were skeptical of his abilities, and others seemed wary of the sudden attention he had received. Armin had to learn patience, diplomacy, and the importance of observation. He could not rely solely on his courage. He had to understand strategy, timing, and human behavior. Slowly, he earned the respect of those around him through sincerity, diligence, and his willingness to learn. Outside the palace, Armin observed how the Queen's decisions affected the people she ruled. He met citizens, listened to their concerns, and saw firsthand the positive impact of her leadership. These experiences strengthened his admiration for her and deepened his understanding of the weight of responsibility. He realized that the woman he had saved was not only extraordinary in her personal qualities, but also in her role as a leader. Every act she performed, every decision she made, had the potential to shape countless lives. Despite the grandeur and duties of palace life, Armin remained grounded in his own values. He never sought fame or recognition, even though many people celebrated his bravery publicly. Instead, he focused on learning, helping, and earning the trust of those around him. This humility earned him quiet admiration from both the Queen and her advisors. They came to understand that his heroism was not performative. It was genuine and selfless, a trait that made him unique in a world often driven by appearances and status. Over time, Armin grew more comfortable in the palace and more confident in his abilities. He learned the delicate balance between action and observation, understanding that some situations required patience and subtlety rather than immediate response. Yet he never forgot the instinct that had guided him during the explosion. The instinct to act without hesitation when someone's life was in danger. This combination of courage and wisdom became his defining strength. As days turned into weeks, Armin realized that his life had been transformed completely. He had entered the palace as an ordinary man, a stranger in a world of tradition and power. But through his bravery, humility, and willingness to learn, he had become someone trusted, valued, and respected. His bond with the Queen deepened, built on shared understanding, mutual respect, and the memory of the moment that had brought them together. Armin understood that his life was now intertwined with hers in ways that would shape the future, both for him and for the kingdom she led. By the time he had fully adapted to palace life, Armin recognized something profound. His journey was no longer just about survival or curiosity. It was about responsibility, courage, and understanding the impact of one's actions. He had been given an extraordinary opportunity, and he intended to honor it. Every decision he made, every challenge he faced, would be guided by the lessons he had learned and the bond he shared with the Queen. What had begun as a single act of bravery had transformed into a life of purpose, meaning, and extraordinary experiences, one that he would carry with him forever. Armin's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. From an ordinary young man with a simple routine, he had become someone living at the heart of a kingdom, trusted by its queen, and connected to events that shaped the lives of thousands. Despite the grandeur and responsibility, he never forgot the moment that started it all, the moment he had risked everything to save her. That memory remained at the center of his thoughts, a reminder of courage, instinct, and the unexpected ways life could transform in a single instant. The Queen had continued to guide him, teaching him not only about leadership but about humanity. She emphasized that true courage was not only about action in the face of danger, but also about consistency, empathy, and thoughtfulness. Armin learned that leadership required a balance of strength and compassion, that every decision could ripple, far beyond what anyone could predict. He spent hours with her, observing, learning, and participating in the subtle workings of governance. Each day was a challenge, yet he welcomed them all, understanding that this was his new life, full of purpose and meaning. As time passed, Armin became more than just a protector or advisor. He became a symbol of hope and courage for the people. Stories of his bravery spread quietly at first, among palace staff, advisors, and guards, and eventually through the kingdom. People admired him not for his rank or wealth, but for his selflessness and determination. He had saved their queen's life, and through that single act, he had ensured the safety and stability of the kingdom itself. He felt a deep responsibility to honor that trust every day. Despite the respect and recognition he received, Armin remained humble. He did not seek accolades or rewards. He focused on learning, helping, and supporting the Queen in her duties. Their bond had grown into one of mutual respect and understanding. She valued his judgment, insight, and honesty, while he admired her wisdom, courage, and kindness. Their interactions were natural, rooted in trust rather than obligation or ceremony. He had begun to understand her world, yet she also sought to understand his, bridging the gap between their two very different lives. Outside the palace, Armin began engaging with the people the Queen served. He attended events, visited communities, and listened to their concerns. He saw the impact of decisions made within the palace walls and learned the importance of every choice and action. He realized that bravery and heroism were not only about dramatic, life-threatening events, they were also about small, consistent actions that made a real difference in the lives of others. Through this work, he developed a deep connection with the people, seeing firsthand the results of his and the Queen's efforts to maintain safety and harmony. Yet life in the palace was not without challenges. Armand faced skepticism from some of the advisors and officials who questioned why an outsider had gained such influence and trust. He learned to navigate these challenges with patience, understanding, and humility. Over time, he earned their respect through sincerity, diligence, and consistency. He understood that respect was not demanded. It was earned through actions and character. This lesson became central to his identity, shaping the way he approached every situation and decision. The bond between Armand and the Queen deepened further. They often shared long conversations about life, duty, and courage. She recounted stories of her own challenges, the burdens of leadership, and the responsibilities that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Armand shared his own experiences, reflecting on how a single moment of instinctive courage had altered the path of his life. Together, they recognized that the moment of the blast was not just an accident. It was a turning point, a moment where destiny had intertwined their lives. As the years went by, Armand's story became more widely known. He was no longer simply the man who saved the Queen. He had become a trusted advisor, a symbol of selflessness and a bridge between ordinary people and the kingdom's leadership. His journey inspired many, showing that courage and integrity could change lives, and that ordinary people could rise to extraordinary circumstances. Children in the kingdom heard his story and dreamed of bravery, citizens admired his humility, and even officials saw him as a model of loyalty and commitment. Despite the fame and recognition, Armand never lost sight of what mattered most, the bond he shared with the Queen and the memory of the moment that had changed everything. He understood that true courage was not about recognition, but about doing what was right, even when no one was watching. Every day he reminded himself of that lesson, guiding his actions with integrity, thoughtfulness, and empathy. Eventually, Armand realized that his journey had come full circle. The man who had once been an ordinary young man, thrown into chaos by an explosion, had grown into someone whose actions mattered on a grand scale. He had faced challenges, navigated a world of power and influence, and learned the importance of courage, patience, and humility. Yet he remained grounded, remembering that a single act of instinctive bravery had been the key to all these changes. Looking back, Armand understood that his life had been transformed not just by external events, but by the choices he made. He chose to act without hesitation when faced with danger. He chose to continue learning and growing in an unfamiliar world. He chose to remain humble and true to his values, even as his life became extraordinary. These choices defined him, shaped his destiny, and allowed him to create a meaningful, impactful life alongside the Queen. In time, the kingdom flourished, and the bond between Armand and the Queen remained strong. Together, they faced challenges, celebrated successes, and inspired countless others. Armand's story was remembered not just as the tale of a hero who saved a queen, but as the story of an ordinary man whose courage, integrity, and determination transformed his life and the lives of those around him. The memory of the blast, the fear, the pain, and the instinct to act remained with him always. But it was no longer a source of trauma. It was a reminder of the extraordinary possibilities that life could offer and the incredible ways a single act of bravery could shape the future. Through all of this, Armand learned the greatest lesson of all, that true heroism is born from selflessness, that courage can change destinies, and that sometimes ordinary people are called to do extraordinary things. His journey proved that life could surprise even the most ordinary of individuals, and that destiny often rewards those who act with integrity, bravery, and an open heart. In the end, Armand's story was a testament to the power of courage, the importance of selflessness, and the remarkable ways that lives can intersect, creating legacies that endure far beyond a single moment.